Before I starts this video, I gotta let the world know that once these videos hit the market, there's gonna be no debate whatsoever that this channel is probably the best shit Newfoundland got to offer. Watching this garbage is gonna be up with traditions like fishing for meals and clubbing seals. But you aren't watching this to hear about little fucking Newfoundland, are ya? No, bah. You want Germany, you want Russia too, you want France, and you probably can't wait to hear about Italy. Jesus, Mary and Joseph tonight, you're rude fucking bastards and you knows it right well. Enough with the bullshit though, I got a fucking war to tell you about. So pufferfish, play me intro and come get your paycheck. This is Leaf Carlo and I'm gonna tell you about the First World War. The tragic events of World War I happened for a ton of different reasons. I could tell you about how Japan beat the shit out of Russia, which turned the Tsar's focus on Europe and the Balkan states, or how Bismarck finessed Europe just to fuck over France, but those topics are worth more than just a quick mention, so I'll go over them both in a later video. For now though, let me tell you a bit about the Balkans. Back in the day, this arse crack of Europe was causing all sorts of problems. It started off with Bosnia getting annexed by Austria-Hungary, which happened to have a large population of Serbs and shit. Serbia wanted to unite all the boys under one banner, so Austria-Hungary was pissing them off a wee bit by getting in the way of their plans and all that. The whole region was like a fucking powder keg, ready to explode whenever you pissed it off bad enough. When the keg went off, the world went up. And it's all because this guy right here was a fucking idiot. Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the Austrian heir to the throne and world-renowned goofball, decides to head down to Bosnia's capital in his lowrider at a time when everyone down there wanted him murked. Have a look at Gavrilo Princip. I know he seems like a sad cunt, but he had some decent connections. Princip was a member of the Black Hand, a Serbian nationalist group which was dedicated to getting Bosnia out of the empire. His buddy tried throwing a bomb at Ferdinand earlier on, but he shits the bed and it ended up injuring a few innocent boys. Luckily for Princip, the Archduke wanted to head back to the scene and talk with some of the wounded, and his driver dicked around after not knowing what road to turn at. Princip pulled out the strap and started spraying. When he finished up his business, the Archduke, his wife, and the child she was pregnant with were gone. Princip must have been pro-choice. As you can imagine, Austria-Hungary was pretty fucking pissed. They blamed Serbia for what went down and presented them with a 48-hour ultimatum. Either tell all your people to stop killing our hares and let us occupy your territory for a bit to let us bitch slap the Black Hand, or we're going to war with you. That's pretty much what it was. Serbia wasn't going to accept that bullshit though, and after the ultimatum went silent, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia on the 28th of July, 1914. The very next day, Tsar Nicky II promised to help out Serbia and started to get their army ready. This set off a chain of events where every European power started to pick sides. Germany sent an ultimatum to Russia demanding that they politely fuck off, which after being ignored, led Germany to declare war on Russia. France always had a hate boner for Germany, and soon they started to mobilise against the Kaiser. A few days later, Germany invaded Belgium as part of its Schlieffen plan for attacking France. That's all well and good, but Belgium was a neutral country, which was a big no-no for big fucking Britain up there. They sent out another bullshit ultimatum, and after Germany pissed on it in front of them, Britain and all of its empire pans declared war on Germany. Within a month, most of Europe was at war. During World War I, trench warfare was used on the Western Front as the main battle strategy. Life was the fucking shits for soldiers on both sides, who regularly had to deal with rat infestations, lice, trench foot, and dehydration. You weren't gonna get away with that battle marching shit either. One charge over those trenches and your arse was getting blasted straight to hell, courtesy of a brand new invention, the fucking machine gun, or just a machine gun if you're proper. So with both sides stuck at a stalemate, new technologies had to come in somewhere. If there's one thing people are great at, it's finding new brutal ways to murder each other horrifically. We've come some far, haven't we?
Anyway, I started blasting. Bang! Bang!
First up, we got tanks. They're big, bulky, and in 1916 they were close to fucking useless. Crews were as slow as me arsehole on a Tuesday night, and most of the vehicles would get caught in the muddy battlefields. But as the war went on, tanks proved to be a useful tool for transportation and overcoming obstacles, so at least it wasn't a total waste of time.
We have clearance, Clarence.
Roger, roger. What's our vector, Victor?
Aviation was still just starting out when the war went down, and most of the shit involving planes early on was just recon stuff. But over the course of the war, military aviation technology made rapid advances, and planes started to get used more and more as planes got more and more power and durability to them. Not only were planes used to get info on artillery locations, defenses, and enemy movement, and the state of me fucking throat right now, but by 1915, they started to have way more of an impact on the offensive side of shit. Bombing missions and dog fights in the air were as common as druggies in the Netherlands or fat chicks in the States. In other words, you can't fucking miss them. When the war ended, aviation became a significant military factor from now on.
Hello, how are you? I am under the water. Please help me.
On the seas, there weren't any full-scale naval battles between British and German boys until the Battle of Jutland in 1916. The British sailed towards Denmark to intercept the German fleet. They were loving it, since any country that ever tried to fuck with their little navy was gonna get smacked around like a little fucking bitch. Germany understood this and did their best to isolate parts of the British fleet to fuck them up. They couldn't finish the job though, but Britain couldn't take out Germany either, and ended up losing a lot more boys in the fighting. The Battle of Jutland ended in a draw, but both sides claimed victory. But who gives a fuck? The real ace up Germany's sleeve was the submarine, or the U-boat as they calls it. It means underwater boat, so I'm fucking frightened. The boys in London were being cunts to Germany, as you usually do when you're at war with a buddy. They were blocking German supplies from overseas ships in an attempt to starve them out, I'm guessing anyways, but Germany got sick and tired of that bullshit. And in 1915, they announced to the world that any Allied merchant ship entering English waters would be getting arse raped by the German U-boats. And the safety of neutral ships couldn't be guaranteed. By October 1917, Germany destroyed around 8 million tons of shipping material. According to me math, that's actually pretty heavy. Germany's unrestricted submarine warfare would eventually end up bringing the States into the war, but we'll get back to that. For now, let me switch focus to the Eastern Front. On the Eastern Front, the fighting was a lot more mobile, and there was a lot less of this trench bullshit going around. Conditions were still garbage though. In August 1914, at the Battle of Tannenberg, the Germans beat the ever-loving fuck out of a much larger Russian army and won a major battle along with it. 30,000 Russians were killed and another 100,000 were taken prisoner. The Russian commander, General Samsonov, died like a real man by putting the bullet between his two fucking eyes. Sad shit, I gotta say. Russia would lose many more battles, and 3 years of brutal L's after brutal L's later, 3 million Russian soldiers were dead and the people were getting fucking pissed off at this retarded war. It all went to shit in the February and October revolutions of 1917. After the latter revolution ended, the Bolsheviks took control over Russia. And in March of 1918, they signed the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, or whatever the fuck you pronounces it, I'm tired, ending Russia's involvement in the war. To end off the Western Front, Russia lost a third of its population and agricultural land and gave away almost all of its coal reserves. Now that we got the East dealt with, let me tell you about a battle on the Western Front that sums up pretty much every other battle that took place. Pointless deaths for meaningless bullshit. It ain't fucking Verdun, I'll tell you that. July 1st, 1916. If you're from Newfoundland, this date's been fucking stamped in your brain since you were a youngster. And I'll tell you why. It's gonna have me shitty opinion all over it, but I wouldn't want to tell you this story any other way. The Battle of the Somme was a killing field, plain and simple. Nothing was gained, and lives were lost, all for another country's national pride. The Royal Newfoundland Regiment, A young group of soldiers, proud and ready to die for Britain, left the trenches around 9:15 that morning. The Allied bombardment to German defences did fuck all, and Germany knew an attack was on the way. The Newfoundlanders marched through no man's land, and they were expected to crowd through piles of barbed wire to reach the enemy trenches 500 metres away. In less than half an hour, of the 800 or so soldiers of the Royal Newfoundland Regiment, only 68 answered roll call the next morning. More than 700 others were killed, wounded or missing. Generations were wiped out in this one battle. And what do we get in return for this sacrifice? Well, just a few years ago, this fucking generation, some English kids started a group to place poppies on the graves of Newfoundland soldiers. Since in the years previous, they were the only graves in the whole war memorial where not a single poppy was placed as a sign of respect and remembrance. As you can tell, I'm not one bit bitter about any of that. If a group of school kids can remember what millions of people seem to forget, at least that gives me a bit of hope. Just remember that we entered the century as a Dominion of Newfoundland, and we left it as the province of Canada. Some fucking sacrifice there, ain't it? I don't give a shit if you're a piss watching this. Like, just remember the regiment. Everything else is secondary to me. Let's move on and see what the States are at. Even though the States was officially neutral, it's obvious that they favoured the Allies. On the 7th of May 1915, a British ocean liner by the name of the Lusitania was torpedoed. 128 out of the 1198 victims were American. What America never told the media is that it's likely that the ship was carrying war supplies for the Allies. Kinda going against the whole neutrality thing, I guess. The general population was pissed though, and that's all that really matters. Germany trying to get Mexico to attack America didn't really help things out. The States took its pants out, whipped out its cock, and declared war on Germany on the 6th of April 1917. This ended up being Germany's downfall, as the German army couldn't keep up with the strength of the American army for very long. More and more battles were being fought and won by the Allies, and the morale of German forces was getting worse. Germany's allies were also getting shut down. On the 4th of October 1918, Germany and Austria-Hungary asked the US President Woodrow Wilson to begin negotiations for an armistice. 1 month later, Austria surrendered to the Allies. 3 days after that, the Kaiser of Germany, Wilhelm, fled to Holland. Finally, on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, 1918, an armistice was reached. 9 million dead soldiers later, and not a fucking thing was accomplished. With the most devastating and pointless conflict in world history coming to a close, you'd think people would want a world without war and violence. But to be honest, the Treaty of Versailles was a hunk of shit. While the States had some good ideas and points on how to keep peace throughout the world, most other nations simply wanted to fuck over Germany, so his ideas were largely ignored. France called upon Germany to accept guilt for the entirety of World War I and demanded that they pay absurd financial reparations to cover the costs of war. Germany signed the treaty, and the Allies' actions would make this once proud nation look like a fucking joke for years to come. Their territory was occupied, they couldn't go into the Rhineland with their military, their currency was worthless, they had virtually no army, and they had a debt that wouldn't be fully paid until 2010. Germany entered a depression, and unemployment went through the roof with their new government. The years after World War I were garbage for Germany, and since Austria-Hungary got dismantled, they had nobody at all to turn to. A few years into Germany's Weimar Republic, and an ugly looking fucker by the name of Adolf Hitler started to make himself known. 1914 turned to 1934, and the world was fucked once again. Thanks a ton for watching through this whole video. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed being the voice behind it all. I wanted to give a special shout out to me buddy Pufferfish for his deadly editing skills you've seen throughout. If not for him, this video would have sucked fucking bull balls. This has been Leaf Carlo, and I'll see you on the right side of the rock. Have a good one.